In a world with artificial intelligence, how do we transform education? Thanks for tuning in. I'm Daniel Lopez, and this is the AI Education Conversation, where we explore the opportunities, risks, and impacts of AI across education. If you'd like to join the conversation, check out the AIeducationconversation.com. Let's jump in. What's up, everyone? We're back with another AI Essentials episode where we cover the essential topics of AI. In today's Essentials, we will explore a topic which has dominated mainstream media regarding AI in education over the past year, alongside academic integrity. Of course, I'm alluding to AI detectors. So, first and foremost, what are AI detectors? After the emergence of ChatGPT, there was a huge conversation about academic integrity of AI tools. In other words, schools, universities, they were really afraid that students were going to be able to create essays in seconds using tools like ChatGPT, and these would be submitted in place of actually completing the assignment correctly. The major response to concerns around integrity were these AI writing detectors. So initially, there were many publications around a tool created by a graduate student called GPT-Zero. GPT-Zero continues to be one of the most popular detectors, but many others have also emerged in this space. Now, why do we need to spend time talking about AI writing detectors? From my perspective, this conversation is critical for a couple of reasons. Number one, since AI detection tools have been used, there have also been many students who have been accused of writing an essay or an assignment using AI based on the results of an AI detection tool. So, as you can imagine, this can have a huge impact or huge implications on a student, such as them getting in trouble for cheating, for plagiarism. Number two, if so many folks are planning on using these tools as a direct response to concerns around AI in their classrooms, I think it's critical that we prove their effectiveness. Just in the same way that we can't trust everything an AI tool like ChatGPT pumps out, we may not be able to trust the detection of every AI detector. So we're going to put it to the test today. I'm going to do so from two different vantage points. First, I'm going to share my own perspective using two of the most popular tools on the market today, Undetectable AI and GPT-Zero. I will feed both of these tools multiple writing samples, some real, some written by AI, and one mixed. And then we'll see what it gives us. Before we jump in, I do want to make sure that I shout out Professor Jason Gulia, who encouraged his followers on LinkedIn to test AI detection tools before feeling audacious enough to accuse anyone of submitting AI writing. I'm going to put them to the test today with some of my own writing. So, that being said, let's jump into the test here. So, I'm going to be showing some video at this part. So, if you are listening, that's okay. I'll do my best to just be able to verbally describe the experience here. And obviously, if you have video components, you'll be able to see the exact screenshots that I'm posting here. That being said, the first example that I'll be sharing with both tools is my high school personal statement, the exact one that I wrote. Now, my hypothesis for this particular document is that both tools should score this as a human written because it's kind of a deeply personal narrative. There's no facts, there's nothing to really jump in from that perspective, but we'll see what happens here. So, first and foremost, I'm going to submit my personal statement to GPT-Zero. It's giving my essay a 98% chance that it was written by a human. So it did not believe that any of the 41 sentences that I submitted were AI generated, and it was correct. It was correct on both fronts. So now let's try the second tool, Undetectable AI. So very similar to with GPT-Zero, what I'm going to do is copy my personal statement. I'm going to paste it into their detector. I'm going to hit generate and see what it does. What's interesting about Undetectable AI is in addition to giving its own assessment about whether it thinks it was AI generated or not, you'll be able to see there at the bottom. It also provides the AI likelihood for multiple other detectors where you can see that it provides it along three domains. If it's green, it means 100% human, yellow is 50-50, and then red means AI. So let's try with Undetectable. Let's see what it gives us. You can see that I uploaded it there. And very similarly, Undetectable AI, it thinks that this was a human written. So from my perspective, honestly, this feels pretty good. Undetectable AI and GPT-Zero They're both taking my personal statement and they're saying it was written by a human. So that feels good because I wrote it. It is mine. I'm proud to say that it knows that it's coming from a human perspective there. So let's try a different type of writing now. Next up, I'm going to submit a section of a senior thesis that I wrote in college. The reason I wanted to provide this as an additional sample is because this is writing from a more academic tone. It also includes multiple citations. So I'm just curious to see if either tools give a different assessment based on this different type of writing. So, very similar to what we did first, we'll start off with GPT-0. Let's submit it. Once I submit it here and upload it, very similar process to what I did before. GPT-0 is giving me the result back, and it looks like GPT-0 gave my thesis the same probability as my personal statement. Interesting. So it's highly confident that this was written by a human, and it gives it a 2% chance that it wasn't. Now let's try the same thing with undetectable AI, similar to GPT-0. It says that the sample appears to be human, though it is suggesting at the bottom with those detectors that I mentioned that three other detectors actually would rate this a 50-50, that they aren't sure. So we're starting to see a little bit of variance there at the bottom. So I have to admit, I'm a little bit surprised that this sample rated similar to the personal statement given the academic writing and the citations element. But that being said, let's try something else. So I have a couple of other samples here. Now, this one, before we jump into putting it into the detectors, I want to showcase these are AI generated samples. So the first two I shared were my own personal writing. I did produce two AI writing samples. I generated a prompt to essentially get a personal statement that is essentially writing a personal statement about a student that has a father as a plumber and uses those life lessons to motivate a passion for engineering. And then the second is about compiling an academic blog about social media's impacts on education. And I asked it to also give three citations. So those are the two writing samples it has given me. We will try the personal statement first here. So let's just do the AI personal statement. So I uploaded to GPT-0 first, and GPT-0 is correctly detecting that this writing sample is AI generated. It estimates it at a probability of 90%. So GPT-0 got it. It was able to accurately correct that. Now let's try undetectable. So I'm uploading it to undetectable. We're hitting generate. We're seeing what it comes up with. Okay, so interestingly here, undetectable actually thinks this essay is written by a human. At the bottom, you'll also see some interesting notes. It shows that the detection likelihood across multiple detectors were actually mixed results, with three other detectors thinking that this is human writing as well, whereas the four others were split 50-50. So we're starting to see a little bit of variance now. Let's try the academic sample. So for the academic sample, I'm going to delete the headlines that's produced. So if you're looking at this visually, you'll notice that it put like introduction in big bold words, it put conclusion, and it put like evidence one there. So I'm just deleting that so it just flows as like 5 paragraphs together in a blog post for each sample, just so that I'm not giving any clues away to these detectors here. So we'll start first with GPT-0. GPT-0 has honestly been dead on so far. So we'll see if anything changes here. So we're uploading the academic blog. We are checking to see what it gives us. And okay, so this is our first interesting finding from GPT-0 here. So I uploaded the AI academic blog, and it gives me a pretty mixed result. It actually gives this AI generated blog a 5% chance that it was written by AI. So it essentially is saying, 95% chance that it was written by human, or at least not written by AI. But what's interesting is it did highlight a bunch of sentences within this, and it said that it thought that these could be AI generated sentences. And it also provides a very low confidence on its outcome. Hmm. So I mean, personally, when I'm looking at this result, all I would say is if I was a teacher and educator and a student had submitted this and I had uploaded and I received this result, I don't know. I don't think I would know what to do with this analysis based on the fact that it said that it thought all of the sentences were AI generated, but then it only gave a 5% chance that it was entirely written by AI. So that's a little bit of a confusing outcome there. So let's try detectable, undetectable again. I'm going to delete the headlines like I did for GPT-0, and here we go. So undetectable actually correctly did flag that this was generated by AI. In the detection likelihood part at the bottom here, it also shows that most detectors would have flagged this as AI written, and there were two detectors which would have had this at 50-50 between human and AI split here. So finally, I wanted to produce a mix example just to see if it would provide a different response here. So for this sample, just to give you a sense of how I'm compiling it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the first paragraph of my original personal statement that I wrote. I'm then going to copy paragraphs 2 and 3, and then I'm actually going to upload those into ChatGPT. I'm going to upload them with the prompt that I basically am asking it to rewrite these 2 paragraphs, and I want it to make it more engaging and compelling. So that is my prompt with the writing that I produced, and then it's going to rewrite this with AI generated content. So if you're following along with the video, you can see it's going through that process. It's thinking, it's producing these 2 paragraphs. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to copy and paste these 2 paragraphs with the first paragraph of my original writing. So it's 3 paragraphs in total, one that I wrote and then 2 that ChatGPT wrote. And I'm then going to paste it in both of these detectors one more time. So now that I've combined the text, let's see what GPT-0 has to say. So GPT-0 is giving this sample a 3% chance that this text was written entirely by AI. So 97% that it's either human or mixed. But I will also say that the part that is AI generated, it actually has pegged it pretty accurately here. If you're looking at this visual that it has, you'll notice that the part that I wrote, it's not highlighted. And then the part that ChatGPT wrote, it actually did highlight. So, but overall, it's again giving back a low confidence score, and it's giving it this breakdown of mostly human mix. So it's not giving us a like a really strong, compelling piece, and it actually still is suggesting to us that it doesn't overall believe that this was written by AI, or at least the entire text wasn't written by AI. So again, let's try undetectable. Undetectable states that it thinks that this content was written by a human. So we fooled undetectable once again. It also put the likelihood of 5 other AI detectors as human, with 3 others as giving this a 50-50, which is accurate since GPT-0, excuse me, gave it a mixed result. So just to give a recap, I know we went through that pretty quickly here. Between these 2 detectors that we use, GPT-0 and undetectable, both did accurately identify the first 2 samples I gave them as human. So they were right. I gave them 2 personal examples, and they both gave those as human. But when it came to the AI samples and the mixed samples, we started to see some variation between the detectors. GPT-0 correctly identified the AI personal statement as AI written, but gave a pretty complicated assessment of the academic blog. It gave a 5% chance of it being entirely written by AI, but it highlighted the entire sample as AI detected. Overall, I think it gave a pretty complex reading of the academic sample, which, again, if you're a teacher trying to detect this within student writing, I think it doesn't leave you with much confidence for how you navigate that conversation with the student. Undetectable, on the other hand, we bamboozled it with the AI personal statement as well as the mix statement. It thought it was written by a human, but I will say that it accurately pegged the AI academic blog as not written by AI. And then again, just to reiterate, finally on that mixed example, GPT-0 did give a mixed result, saying it thought it was only a 3% chance that the entire text of that last mix example that I produced was generated by AI, but it did highlight that the AI generated section in the sample, it was able to pick it out. Those 2 paragraphs, it had a highlight there. Undetectable, on the other hand, it rated the mixed sample as written by a human, so we fooled it twice. So I have 4 just quick reactions and caveats here based on going through this experience. Number 1, I would say that overall the AI detectors were not totally inaccurate. So let me be fair where I should be here. But there were definitely instances here where we saw some uncertainty with each of them. It seemed like undetectable really seemed to struggle with AI written personal narratives, whereas GPT-0 seemed to perform well across all samples except for that academic AI blog piece, which it gave me pretty contradictory assessments of how to just respond to that. Number 2, I only generated samples using ChatGPT. Let's also keep that in mind. And I also know that GPT-0 was built originally with the intention of detecting ChatGPT curated text. So it does make me wonder if I had tried to generate samples from Bard and Claude, would it have been equally as effective? Or all of a sudden now are we starting to fool it in the same way? I think my third reaction here is that I was able to create some anomalies with each tool. And for those of you that are keeping track, that experiment lasted 6 minutes. So imagine if I actually sat here for an hour, really with the goal of trying to make the text undetectable. The other piece that you may not have fully noticed when you were looking at the Undetectable AI website, which I would definitely invite you all to check it out if you're interested in seeing how these tools work. The Undetectable website interface I was showing, In addition to detecting AI written text, they also claim to be able to make AI generated content undetectable by other AI detectors. In other words, making it sound human. So that's like another layer of added complexity here, which is if I had generated, let's say, that AI personal statement that I had, I could have just uploaded it to undetectable and then hit that make it more human button and then taken what it had given me and then put it back into chat GPT-0 and then seen what result it gave then. So some of these tools are trying to help you make your text even more undetectable. My fourth final caveat here is that I would definitely not take any of these detections at face value, even after doing this experiment. The reason I say that is because it could be helpful to leverage a few of these tools if you highly suspect a student is submitting an AI generated piece. And of course, then you would want to follow up with a conversation before you're making an accusation and an assumption there. But to be honest, I think you need to weigh that trade off because if I'm a student, I'm submitting an essay that I'm proud of. And then I find out my teacher is like running it through a bunch of these detectors and then having a conversation with me about it. That might actually destroy the trust or the relationship I have built with that teacher in the process. So this is very much a trade off. And I don't think doing that comes without any type of impacts as it relates to the student relationship there. So that's the quick experiment. Now you all know a little bit more about these AI detectors, and hopefully you have your own answer to this question of do AI detectors work? Finally, just as optional reading for those of you who are really interested in learning more about AI detection tools, I did want to share a recent study published in the International Journal for Educational Integrity. The researchers do really extensive testing on a range of 10 plus AI writing detectors. And overall, what they're finding is accuracy ratings in different testing situations between 50% accuracy upwards of like 80, low 80s% accuracy. For all my AI enthusiasts who listened, what do you think about AI rating detectors? What advice would you share with educators who suspect a student of using AI to generate an essay? I'll share any tips that I receive in the episode descriptions and our episode blog posts as they start to trickle in. If you have any other thoughts on today's episode, you can join the conversation at the AIeducationconversation.com or message me on LinkedIn. Humans at the heart of education. I'll see you next episode.